Hello, everyone, and welcome again to We Are Leeds NYC podcast. And we're joined with some fresh meat here. Full disclosure, this is my brother Neil down below. He is a gooner, and this is his brother in law and also a mate of mine. Can I call you a mate, Declan?
I don't know. We'll see. See at the end of the
Okay, we'll
conversation.
see. A Liverpool fan, but we are not discussing any of that stuff today. We are discussing the stage of the World Cup that we are at right now. This is false advertising. I don't have a Leeds mug. But anyway, gentlemen, we are now there was only four teams left. Quarters last night. New York was rocking last night with the English, and I have to say they knew how to celebrate. They were brilliant. They shut down 33rd Street for a good 40 minutes. The cops had to come and clear it. It was great to see. But how was it watching in Dublin? What's your takeaways from the game last night, England versus Norway? Neil, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, there was definitely a big buzz around it. I mean, you get this sort of, I don't know whether it's a fake anti-English sort of, I hope they, go as far as getting knocked out on penalties, sort of schadenfreude that seems to be a long hangover for all sorts of reasons. You get more and more people, I think, now going, well, look, I do support ex-English team, therefore maybe I should sort of, in some way be a bit more supportive. But I was at a gig on Friday night, Johnny Marr from the Smiths, and he finished the gig by going, come on, Norway. So I think that was just for he was being a fake plastic paddy. But look, so you can't get away from that. Having said that, there was absolute buzz. The time of the game being 10 o'clock kickoff at our time really helped. I wasn't in town, but everyone was talking about it. There's been a nice sort of build up. We missed it. Well, I definitely miss games every day, and getting used to the fact that withdrawal symptoms are starting to kick in. But so there was a nice build up to it, and I guess the inevitable of France getting through comfortably. I think Spain a bit less so, but still getting through means that I think last night's game was exhausting. I think the third exhausting game for England in a row. They have had a tough. They've had to dig deep, and that can, I guess, work for you or against you. We'll see when they face the um, the team that is FIFA's team of choice, in my view, Argentina. So we can come back to that, but that's going to be it's their juicy semi-finals. Put it that way, juicy semi-final.
Yeah, we'll get back to the Argentina and the VAR controversy in a minute. But Declan, what do you think of the result last night?
Well, I mean, as Neil said, watching it from Ireland, there's a strange phenomenon around loyalties, and so in terms of the result, probably overall the right result. In terms of what people wanted for that result, it's very very strange. I was chatting to someone last night who was, was talking about the anti-English sentiment and so on, but he was saying about how his grandfather had never got over his sort of anti-Scandinavian sentiment because of the Vikings in Ireland. So, so
I
we
remember
we
it well.
carry we carry many grudges. So you can be pro England, anti Norway, anti Norway, pro England. I mean, we we'll find a way to be against or for whoever we like at any one time. But in terms of the result, it's a tricky one as well because there were controversial moments in the game. Obviously, there was some debate about the ball hitting one of the cables above, and FIFA's spokespeople saying that no, that didn't happen. But so we had to kind of, we had to deny the knowledge of our own eyes, and and other moments like that. The Halland push in the penalty. I mean, every single player in the penalty box these days is pushing every other player. So that was a strange one. Yeah, probably the right result. As you say, Neil, knackered English players, but also a little bit of division within the camp. Comments from Tuchel afterwards seemed to have upset Bellingham, and you know that's enjoyable seeing them kind of crack apart at the seams.
Well, as some of the Ga lads, shall we say, their commentary online has been, yeah, the Norway's brought us raping, pillaging, and Dublin. So that's three bad things that they brought. But I digress. It's been great watching kind of the stars. I was saying yesterday that all the stars of each teams, you'd be happy kind of for any one of them to go through because they've been emblematic of representing the sport, and I think in a very positive way. And I think no more so than Holland. But did he go out in a whimper last night? Did his supporting cast around him give him the best chance of succeeding? And how does that story end? And how does that story carry through?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like the familiarity both teams had with one another, I think, was incredible. Like you had the box was full of his own club mates at times, well, not full, but, players who play against each other on a regular basis and rivalries that exist and friendships that exist. And he's pally with Bellingham from obviously the Dortmund days, and they would be pals, I believe. And obviously you had O'Reilly and you had John Stones and you have Halland. So I think they knew how to play him a bit. And I think they knew if you keep Odegaard more or less quiet, the supply dries, even though the first goal caught everyone by surprise. It was a bit like, sorry, did that just happen? How did that happen? So I think the familiarity helped. And then obviously when Rice went off, he shouldn't have started in the first place, but there's such a predictability to the starting 11 at times. Once he went off, Odegaard got a lot of space, and I think Odegaard's had a very good tournament. I say that with a bit of sort of satisfaction being an Arsenal fan, and he gets a kicking from Arsenal fans a lot. He's had a good tournament. I mean, is he as direct as he could be at times? No. Does he come too deep? Yeah. But I think that really made a difference. And by the time they were making the plays, I think Halland just seemed to be knackered. As like Jude Bellingham looked as well, absolutely dead on his feet, but long before he went off. So I would say, yeah, he was marked out of. I guess the one thing I wondered is, it always looks like Halland is just casually strolling around the place, and he does that to almost disarm opponents, and then he just out of nowhere gets a goal. But I think he's probably doing more work off the ball than you would think, and a lot of running. And I'd say in that heat, I'd say, yeah, he was tired, a lot of effort trying to make crosses and this, that, and the other. So I don't think he went out in a whimper. But I think England he was the one player they managed to keep very quiet. But the others, I guess, made up for that in some sort of way.
Yeah, and apologies, Neil's just looks as though he's in a bit of a lag. He's in our mother's house and she usually has shit internet, but he is getting his points across. Declan, why don't you just let us know about the Hallandness of it all, and you can put him, can talk about in the reference to other superstars in other team or just Halland last night. It seems as though there was a couple of times there was a couple of passes on from his supporting cast in Norway, but they kind of went it alone, and it seems as though we just didn't get the best service, didn't get a crack. What do you think happened last night?
No, I mean that's spot on, really, and yeah, Neil's nailed it there really with the supply, and that those players knew what to do. You saw that the first goal, from Norway, was it a shot, was it a cross? But it was certainly, I mean, Halland was, encroaching on the goal. Like, I mean, he was in, and if that was a cross, he probably would have headed it in. So he was getting into the positions, but I think of him sometimes, like particularly during this World Cup, he's like a dad playing with kids, and that he's like walking around while everyone else is running around like a maniac. And then when he does get the ball, he wellies it so hard at the goal, like an adult surrounded by children. But I mean that in a serious way, in one sense as well. He's a different type of human being among all the others, sort of ungainly presence, but with this unbelievable physical power. So I think he's been impressive. Like the game before, 2 chances, 2 goals. I mean, that's an extraordinary, that's an extraordinary threat to have on the pitch. But yeah, last night they cut the supply chain.
It's been interesting to see just the effect. You talk about the Messi effect. The Messi effect is real. I've been trying to interview real RGs across the city, and every time I go to someone in a Messi jersey, oh no, I just like Lionel Messi. Like, it's pretty incredible the effect he's had, and now it's been pretty incredible the effect that Halland has had. There's a soccer jersey place. I don't know if you guys have ever been to it. It's very near the Fred Perry place on Canal Street, and they were totally out of Norwegian jerseys, and everyone was coming in looking for the Norwegian jerseys. So they definitely have captivated, I think, minds and hearts of people around, especially with that. It's been amazing marketing with that, like, rowing stuff. I was asking lads, when you were in those boats, what be actually rowing to go and do? But I digress. Let's talk about the Argentina games. So what are your takeaways from that and the Messi effect from that game?
Messi effect. Yeah, Argentina, I'm sort of a bit I'm torn on the Argentina thing. I really think it has been refed in their favour. If I can be quite political for a second, I would think that privately, and maybe almost not privately, Infantino, I don't know what influence Trump has had, if any, or what interest, but I think if he was asked, and he probably was, what he would like, I think he would have loved, players he likes on the podium at the end, winners and losers. And it felt to me like if they could at all have influenced Ronaldo and Messi being in a sort of a final that had this sort of poetry to it in a very sort of obvious way, they would have liked that. I think back, it seems ages ago at this stage, and I was in Greece when the tournament started, so it shows you how long the whole thing has run, and it was joyful at that stage, just game after game after game, and just one of the benefits of a big World Cup is sort of teams that may not have been there, been thrown up against teams that may not have had a chance to play each other. So, but I do remember back to that Croatia Portugal game and feeling, okay, there's a bit of injustice there in the way they went down to that sort of technology in the ball to disallow a Croatian goal. So I have watched enough videos to feel that there's a definite favoritism towards Argentina, and Messi being so involved with so many sponsors, and so he's the face of the tournament and the face of football worldwide, and all of the, I guess, biggest investors in the tournament have almost an investment in Messi. So my feeling is that as if they can make it happen, they will make it happen. That Messi is ultimately lifting the trophy for the second time, so he goes out on an absolute high, and there's all the sponsors are happy, Infantino's happy, Trump is happy, and they feel that it's been the achievement they thought it might be. So I think, yeah, if you're going to beat Argentina, you have to beat them clearly. And I think France are the team that can do that, I think. Um, the others, I think, would be close. It'll be close between, if England have the energy levels between us. I know I'm going on for a bit, but I think, just to conclude, the most frustrating game, depressing game for me throughout the whole tournament has been Paraguay-France. And I think my conspiracy theory would be, and I'm not one for conspiracy theories, how they didn't have at least two players sent off, or at least one, and multiple yellow cards in that game is just beyond me. The only explanation I can think of is that they tried to get France out of the tournament to make it easy for the ultimate final to emerge and get one of the biggest, potential barriers to Messi lifting the trophy out of the way. That's a long, sort of rambling answer to a short question, but I can't get away from that stuff at the moment.
It's quite the conspiracy theory that you'd want Mbappe out in order for Messi to to thrive and to win. But Declan, can I bring you back just a sec? I've been out in Astoria. I don't know if you're familiar with the story. Very diverse neighborhood, and I've been following the Moroccan and the Egyptian fans out there, and they celebrate with a singular kind of enthusiasm that has been amazing and infectious. So, for those reasons, one, I wanted the North African team to advance a lot further, or an African team, but their celebration was incredible. But the singular response out there from everyone was, "We were robbed," similar to Neil's response. But do they have a case that VAR was incredibly unfair in that game? And I know you're a Liverpool fan. But for that reason, you might have taken a closer look at the Mo Salah foul. Was it legit that they called that goal back, right back for 80 yards for the first time, and didn't seem to look at it for any of those two Egyptian incidences in the box?
No, that seemed like bollocks to me. Really, I may be ventriloquizing Alan Shearer here. Did he say the same thing? But uh, it's crazy. If the referee had been paying attention, that was a foul when it should have been a foul, but not to call it back. No, and I don't know whether I'd go as far as to say, that there's a conspiracy, but there's certainly a lot of inconsistency and some degree of unfairness. And yeah, all those North African teams, it would be fantastic if one of them progressed further. And this is a slight tangent, I suppose, but one thing I was thinking about in advance of this conversation was about the maybe standout players that I was less familiar with. Because there's obviously the superstars. We've mentioned it, Mbappe and Messi and others. I was trying to think who are the other kind of really emerging stars, and actually sometimes it's been goalkeepers, and like there's been games where Egyptian goalkeeper. I mean, obviously the Cape Verde goalkeeper, even the Norway goalkeeper in the Brazil match. The absolutely stellar performances sometimes from not very prominent goalkeepers, or sometimes guys who haven't had the most amazing careers, but are doing extraordinarily well. So I mean, I suppose even Simon for Spain, plays for Bilbao. He doesn't play for one of the the giant clubs really, and has been again outstanding. So as I say, it's a tangent, but I'm relating it to those questions about the Egyptians and the Moroccans and so on, where they've done so well, and some of their standout performers have been the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I was going to do a piece on how the refereeing I thought was stellar, and the VAR kind of like rescinding some yellow cards and giving it to the flopper was exemplarily early on. And then came the Croatian game, and then came the Argentine Egyptian game, and then came the American red card and the administration interference. And then it all seemed to go to shit a little bit. And then VAR seemed to be putting its heavy hand on the scales. To Neil's point, it's hard to resist a conspiracy theory. Declan, I'm going to go back to you on that one.
Well, with some of it obviously is conspiracy in plain sight. Like the Trump Balagan moment was openly declared. So if that's happening in the open, I guess yes, it's understandable to think that there would be things in the background, and the kind of cognitive dissonance around that Balagan situation, where you have the arguments from Republicans and Trump in particular about birthright citizenship in the States, and Balogun being a player, who was born in New York by a Nigerian mother on holiday, and then he's the sort of pride of the United States team, being given special treatment by Trump. I mean, in some ways, the kid is blameless in all this. He's just in the middle of this great sort of network of corruption, but. But yeah, an extraordinary set of contradictions at play in that moment.
I was going to put, Pochettino was also thrown into the middle of it, and I was thinking he would do the righteous thing and not play Balogun. But then I realized, he is in the middle of it. If he doesn't play him and then it comes a cropper, then he's the target. So I think he's smart enough to realize that.
Yeah.
But let's move on. So. We could do a whole episode of that, and we will do a whole appraisal of the World Cup. But let's talk about the semi-finals and the matchup on Tuesday and Wednesday. I think obviously for us, and for a lot of people, the most appetizing of those for starters is England-Argentina, because it's a rematch up for a variety of different reasons. Neil, tell us your thoughts on that, and what would you like to see from that game?
I've been a bit. It was the same about a lot of recent games when it came to knockouts. So many teams seem evenly matched, or you feel equally towards teams. I just want the team that feels like they should go through to go through. If Argentina justifiably beat England and it feels like 3-1 against Switzerland, you can't contest that. That's clear. And I saw the goals, whatever about the red card. If England deserve it, they'll deserve it, hopefully. So you'd like to think that the right teams go through. Yeah, look, it's an intriguing game in so many ways. I'd be concerned about Argentina play with a ferocious amount of energy and attacking intent. Even when they've gone goals down, I mean, I wondered how long Egypt would withstand the pressure that they were immediately under when they went ahead in that game. They're aggressive and they're attacking, and they've got Messi, and they have talent all over the pitch, in fairness to them. So I just think with 3 really tough games behind them, not that Argentina having a tough game, that England feel knackered. They're struggling with a couple of injuries in key places. But they've got really, if you've got Jude Bellingham fit and Harry Kane fit, even though they didn't have a great game, and Declan Rice fit, who knows? So I couldn't really call it, although you sort of feel that there's an inevitability, as I've said, about Argentina going through. But it's a proper test. I mean, both games are proper tests for all the teams involved. So I think in that sense, when you look at where we are, you've got serious heavyweights now in the last.
Declan, are England pushing their luck at this stage? And the second question to that you can lead into, what final do you want to see?
Well, England excel at exiting the competitions in semi-finals or quarterfinals, and usually via penalties. So, ideally that's what we're going to see. Richard Osman, the writer broadcaster, had a nice lineup, rhyming lineup. I don't know whether you saw this. He said the keeper, that's Jordan. There's Anthony Gordon, then Bellingham, Anderson, Konza, Gahey and Saka, Harry Kane as attacker, leaving Rice and O'Reilly and Kwanzaa. So,
are you reading that, or did you learn that?
I learned that off. Yeah.
That's really good.
He wrote it.
Yeah. So
that could be a party piece.
So, does. Yeah, it shows how many players they can leave out. Though I mean, they have really good depth in their squad, even though they left out. I mean, extraordinary people left out. I mean, we could talk about that all day as well. Like, what must Phil Foden be thinking at the moment? Jack Grealish, Trent Alexander-Arnold in particular. Where they've got a
Yeah.
right back crisis, and one of the world's best attack-minded right backs is sitting at home.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking of Trent. I was just thinking of Palmer and Foden, but I wonder why I didn't pick Trent. But we can go into the English selection. Hopefully it's as Neil says, like football wins out. But is there any wish for any kind of final that you would like? What are you looking for from the
I,
France
I
Spain
mean,
Spain game?
I'd expect France to go through to the final. I think Spain have been impressive. Certain combinations, certain moments in games. You look at them and you see the way they control the game. They're a different type of proposition to France, and Spain are. It's a little less exciting sometimes. But there's a lot of skill and ability and organization. France are kind of thrilling at their best, and they have such range across their front line. That's one of the things that's so impressive about them is, you know, they can do lots of different things with the attackers they have. And yeah, I would expect them to not just get to the final, but to win it.
Neil, I was going to ask you what's at stake with the Argentina England game, but let's stick a pin in that. We all kind of know what's at stake in that one, but I know you want football to win out. But what final are you looking for?
Well, I think, as Declan said, I think France are just irresistible in so many ways, and they're not complacent. I think they're a stronger team than 4 years ago. Just that sort of combination of talent up front. They're solid at the back. They progress it so quickly. The Dembele, Olise, whether it's Doué or um, Bartola. It is Bartola, isn't it? Barcola, excuse me. And Mbappe. I mean, that's just a formidable sort of range of options they have there. Again, I think there's an inevitability about an Argentina France final. I think again it's a repeat of the last final. So I would, if that happens, I would love to see France get proper reward for how good they've been consistently. And I think I go back to that Paraguay game. I just some clips come up today and I just look at how they were refed in that game, and I feel there would be some poetic justice to that. I thought I would love to see France really earn um, the right to stand on that podium and feel like they've got to express themselves in the way we've seen them so far. That'll be a lovely way to round it off. So we're not just looking back to a few games ago, although they did, I think, ultimately get through against Morocco. Morocco were a bit disappointing. I think France did sort of comfortably get through there. I thought there might be more to that game. Maybe we can talk in a second about teams that are disappointed, but I think, yeah, a France victory being allowed to play the way I think that would happen. I think it would be the sort of game where they would both have attacking intent. Therefore, as long as the refereeing goes and the decisions go and there's no controversies like we've seen in other games, I think that would be the ideal for me. Lovely way to round it all off.
Great. And guys, we're nearly out of time, but is there any other football cocktail World Cup chatter you want to include in the last minute or two that we haven't included? Declan,
I
any
suppose,
chatter you have?
I suppose a word on Ireland's representation at the 2026 World Cup. Important to recognise the achievement of Pico Lopez from Shamrock Rovers. Now, I live in a part of Dublin called Phibsborough, and we have a team here called Bohemians FC, and they are the arch rivals of Shamrock Rovers. But Pico Lopez plays for Cape Verde. He has been outstanding as a defender for that team. So we put aside our Shamrock Rovers hostilities just for the moment to celebrate the achievement of this guy and of the Cape Verde team. And as I say, the Cape Verde goalkeeper. But they've been a real treat in the competition, and it was brilliant to have someone who's from Crumlin in Dublin playing in that team, who got recruited amazingly for the team through a LinkedIn message as the Cape Verde setup were looking to try and track, um, you know, uh, eligible players around the world. And so amazing story to have him kind of going, you know, sort of face to face with Messi, while being a League of Ireland footballer. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that came up yesterday in the classic Jersey football shop. There was this lad who was Irish and Puerto Rican, and he was representing about Shamrock Rovers, looking for a Shamrock Rovers top in there, and he couldn't find one. And I talked extensively about your guys' coffee shop, Boom Boom. Is Boom Boom?
Bang bang,
Bang, bang.
bang
Bang
bang.
Bang.
Yeah.
Bang Bang and Bo's been very like fascist conscious and politically conscious and doing like some great stuff with their jerseys with kneecap, etc., etc. But Neil, any cocktail chatter? Your last like little tidbit takeaway?
Yeah, well, again, just the Pico Lopez thing is wonderful, and the fact that he's just carried himself so well, he's so articulate, his family as well. The whole thing has been very wholesome, and he's come back and he's on the RTE panel talking about games, and he's a good pundit, and he's a very sort of decent bloke. So that's been a real shining light, and good to see something really pure, I guess there. And I do feel for them as well. I think they had an unfortunate exit. They really put it up to Argentina. Let's not go back there again. But I think, I think it really showed up some teams. I think there was some great moments like the Cap Verde team and a couple of other performances like that. I thought were really just, inspiring. And then you have, I think, Brazil were disappointing overall. They had moments. Belgium had a resurgence. So I thought that was interesting. Started, that sort of progression. I think the home country Mexico were really inspiring for a bit. I think just looking at just the support and the way that they just carried the nation for a period. And then ultimately, when they lost to England, it was just a great game to, if you're going to lose, to lose in that sort of, I guess, atmosphere and with that sort of sense of occasion, I think was incredible. But just to add to that, I think teams just like, I think Brazil, Portugal, Colombia in the end, Morocco in the end, and Netherlands, they're all sort of, teams that maybe flattered to deceive a bit. And, it's good to see, I guess, some teams have a great moment. And then, look, ultimately, we've got mouth-watering ties. I don't think anyone would say these aren't really great ties to look forward to. So, look, I think there will be a stain over the whole thing. Sorry, and that's my final bit. I wonder, how, particularly when you go back to the red card suspension. I mean, that is an event that requires more discussion after this tournament when they, let football express itself for the final week. But I think there's a lot of discussion points that will be that'll live long in the weeks after the tournament is over.
All right, Neil, leaving us on a high note there. Thank you.
Let's hopefully it is a high. France to win. There's your high. That's it.
Okay,
Can I?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say a final word for the best jersey of the tournament, which was Belgium's away shirt,
Nice.
quoting a painting called "The Voices of Space" by René Magritte. So not many international football teams are having references to surrealist painters on their jerseys. So I thought that's the standout shirt of the tournament.
Yeah, that looks like that was inspired by a Bows Journey jersey, doesn't it? It's got a bit of the Bows, which one of Fontaine's DC about it. There was a bit of that vibe about it in terms of color schemes and things, but it was a beautiful jersey, yeah.
By Bows, Neil means Bohemians, which is the club we just referenced, which is the Fibsborough club where these two lads live. But anyway, gents, listen, thanks a million. We'll chat again, hopefully, if you'll come back. Let's chat before the finals. And all I can say is enjoy your footy, and hopefully football reigns, and we're not talking about any sloppy VAR decisions or any kind of like crappy politics. You guys, thanks a million, and we will chat soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. We'll see you soon.
Mochi, folks.
All right, I'm with you.